Welcome to the Cincy Postcast. I'm your host, Kevin Wallace, and before we get into today's episode, I want to tell you about our sponsor, Streetside Brewery. Look, these guys are located in historic Columbia Tusculum neighborhood on the east side of Cincinnati, and Streetside is really the perfect mix of just local neighborhood watering hole and a modern craft beer brewery. They have 24 beers on tap, and I promise you, you will not find a bad one amongst them. These guys were great when they had us out for the live show for the CONCACAF Champions Cup kickoff to start FC Cincinnati season, and they do events all throughout the year. They do a pint night on Tuesday nights. They do Premier League mornings. Tons of really fun events there. But a special note to Postcast listeners, if you mention the Cincy Postcast at the bar when you're getting your beer, they will take $1 off of your beer, and you let them know that we sent you their way. You can find them at 4003 Eastern Avenue or in the fridge of wherever you're picking up your next beer. Again, a huge thank you to Streetside Brewery for sponsoring the Postcast. And on today's episode, well, there wasn't a whole lot happening in the FC Cincinnati world, and yet we still recorded a pretty long podcast for you. Fair warning on this one, Grayson's local audio recording corrupted in this process, but we did capture the Zoom audio, so you'll still hear Grayson, just not as clean and crisp as you're used to. But on this episode, we do talk about Miles Robinson getting called up to the U.S. men's national team, 2 FC Cincinnati matches this weekend, with Thursday against Monterrey, New England this weekend. What chances does FC Cincinnati have in Mexico? Rule changes in MLS coming down the pike? Listener questions? We got it all on the Postcast. And joining me to talk about all of that and more, I'm joined by 2 gentlemen who are looking at the other CCL results and dreading staying up until 1 a.m. on Thursday, the day that you're probably listening to this. I'm joined by the Chief. I'm joined by Grayson. Grayson, it's been a relatively quiet week for FC Cincinnati, excepting the ongoing Free Laurel protests. Good thing or bad thing?
That's a quiet week.
Yeah.
I think it's a bad thing.
Ooh, okay.
Because
we're content creators. We
We have to
this.
react.
Yeah.
We're not people who do things.
No.
We are people who react to things.
Yes.
So if none of the people who, are the makers in the world are doing things, there's nothing for us to react to. And
the leeches die off. Yeah.
Yeah, there is which I thought was funny because there's all the people who are in Pat Brennan's mentions or the team's mentions and stuff, and they're like, shut up until you free Laurel, or hashtag free Laurel. And we said our stuff, we said our, I think our position's clear on this. But if Pat Brennan shut up, who would you respond free Laurel to? You have to, there needs to be some type of, the team needs to exist,
right,
for you to protest against it. Am I wrong?
No, somebody needs to create or report the news so that we in the punditry class can tell you how to feel about the news you are reading and the information you are seeing. And when there is nothing for us to react to, then you, the listeners, suffer most because you can't learn how to feel listening to us. So no. I feel bad. I feel bad for the people that it's been a slow news week. I feel bad for the listeners.
Yeah.
I feel bad for the 12 that are our ride or die.
I think we say 14. I think we say 14.
The 12 are there's 12 ride or dies, and then
there's 2
more.
casuals.
2 bandwagoners.
When there's news.
2 casuals.
No, we love all of our listeners, even those of you who only listen casually. You're still my favorite. You're still our favorite. But when there's no news to react to, we don't get those extra 1 or 2 listeners to make it the true 14. So I do have a feeling that we are talking to just the 12s today. This is an episode for the 12s, I think.
Yeah. So, yeah, I agree.
Man, we could really make this an episode for the 12. I've got a couple of topic ideas.
I have lots. I have many things I could talk about that would end this podcast.
Grayson's intrusive thoughts. Like, you ever been driving along the bridge and thought to yourself, what happens if I just jerk the wheel and go right over? That's that moment right there in the podcast. What if we just ended it all right here?
It actually does remind me of my favorite. I guess it's an intrusive thought. It's just one of those disturbing thoughts that once you have it in your brain, you can never get it out of your brain. Was walking around Clifton with a buddy back in college. And we're walk past a telephone pole that had clearly been used trillions of times to advertise everything, right? So it's got millions of staples and nails all up and down it, all in various states of rust and decay. Just the most, scary, jagged looking thing you've ever seen in your life. And he just leans over out of nowhere and goes, just imagine licking that. And now I can't walk past a telephone pole without imagining licking it, and it just makes me gag. It hurts my tongue. I hate it.
It's like, what does this taste like? Rust and tetanus?
Right? Oh God, yeah. So there you go. I don't know what that qualifies as.
Tastes like lost dog flyers and looking for bass player.
Exactly. Come to this community club on campus with 3 other weirdos you don't want to be associated with. It's always good.
Can you even call them telephone poles anymore, since nobody really has a landline? Like, will we reach a point now where it'll be the telephone pole and the kids will wonder, well, why do we need a pole?
Yeah.
Telephones don't have wires.
There's just bird sitting poles.
I mean, we have dashboards still. That's like a stagecoach term. I think it'd be very quaint to have telephone poles and people really wonder what a telephone was and why they needed poles.
Right. And we still say president, even though there's no government over which to preside.
True. There's no. What's a good, I'm trying to think of a good conspiracy off the top of my head. That the Articles of Confederation was the last one, so we haven't had a legitimate president since whoever the last president of the Articles of Confederation was.
I'm not going to say how I know this, but I know there is a good conspiracy theory that the United States government is illegitimate because we descend from the Holy Roman Empire, if you go back far enough, and therefore the country is actually secretly controlled by the Pope.
Oh, that seems to make you legitimate, honestly. I can't think of a more valid root of your legitimacy of your government than the papal authority. The church that traces its roots to Jesus Christ himself.
The rock upon which I will build my church.
Right, like what are you, like a Lutheran? You worship Martin Luther?
Luther was convinced the Pope was the Antichrist. He's got to be so disappointed.
He was like, "Oh yeah, I just follow some German guy." Like, what are you even doing?
Gustavus Adolphus was right. Hashtag.
I will say that due to all the talk about the Kate Middleton and whatever's going on with her, I have been reading up on a lot of conspiracy theories, and as I look at my phone right now on my browser is reptilian conspiracy theory. There's a Wikipedia article for that I was reading about. Reptoids and Saurons.
I like this.
I like this a lot. If you just none of this would matter if you just accepted the true church, which is the Catholic Church prior to the Second Vatican Convention.
Also, unfortunately, and you're going to have to look at this Wikipedia article to understand this. But
if you listen to this podcast for the first time,
we are not stoned. We are not stoned. No, this is normal. You can read an entire article on the reptilian replacement.
Whatever person told you to listen to this, they've heard this basic exact conversation before, and they knew about it, and they told you to listen to it anyway. It's not our fault; it's their fault.
So I'm sending you guys on a text message. So I want your reaction in real time. there's a anatomical drawing on Wikipedia of what a reptilian and a human looks like. And the only thing I could notice is that there is a gross disparity in size of the two individuals, yet the human still has bigger equipment than the reptile, which I don't understand.
Well, because the rest of the equipment, I think, is on top of their head.
That is wild. Because at first, your first thought is, well, this is just proportionate, but it's not.
No,
it's not.
It's not at all.
And like, why is this drawing on Wikipedia? Like, why, of all the things you can put on.
I was just thinking back on the person who thinks the U.S. is controlled by the Pope for, I don't know, let's say for the entire time the U.S. has been around. Have they really looked around and been like, yep, this is exactly what the Pope would have done. This is the Catholic ideal nation.
No, this is what the Pope would have done to make you think the Pope isn't in charge.
Because the Pope's ultimate dream is to have power, but in no way, shape, or form use it, exercise it. Or
yes.
Just having it in your back pocket's all you need. So this is what happens when Laurel gets banned. There's not any hard news for us to talk about.
Laurel's banned. Pat Brennan was on a flight to Mexico and is apparently, knee deep in tequila right now, I think.
Classic Pat.
Yeah, he took photos from his balcony in Monterrey. Pat has a very nice setup for his hotel. I'm very jealous of where Pat is staying, wherever that is.
I tweeted at Carter and I asked him, is the Monterrey Stadium as nice as it looks on Google Images? And he said, yes, it is. So that's really disappointing.
There's news for you. There's news for you right now. We have a confirmation.
It sounds like it's the first opponent we've had that has world-class facilities like ours.
Whoa, only the stadium. Maybe the training ground is absolute shithole.
I actually thought about asking Pat if the training ground is world-class. But I felt like I had tweeted enough today.
Oh man, I replied to too many things on Twitter and was getting all sorts of weird notifications.
You did for sure.
Yeah.
There's too much stuff happening on Twitter.
We've all been there though. Occasionally, you're just like too on the internet for one day, and you're like, you know what? I need a backup. There are too many people replying to what I'm saying. I just need to take a self-imposed time out here.
We'll talk about that in this part too. I was going to ask a question about soccer, and oh god, gross.
All right, I have a thing about soccer.
Please tell me.
I'll talk about. So, I said this in one of our Discord channels, but I meant it as a joke, but I also meant it, which is like how all of this goes.
It's pretty much the postcast right there.
Yeah, it's us, baby.
I was thinking about the reaction to the last game we had. Or even the game before that, where people were like, oh, we think that Yedlin should sit behind Powell, or Powell is better than Oriano and Yedlin, or we should start Powell and Halsey or whatever. And people are spouting out random stats, like successful dribbles or pass completion percentage or whatever.
Yeah.
And I've wanted to talk about this for a while, honestly, is how you analyze soccer. And I would like to advance a proposal and see how you guys react to it.
Go for it.
I think soccer is a humanity and not a STEM sport.
Okay, so here's where I think that you're going with this, and here's where I agree with it. Soccer, part of the reason I don't like a lot of the numbers in soccer is that it's not like other sports where you can break the game down into a lot of discrete activities. It's free flowing. The play doesn't stop a lot. There's just if on one end of the spectrum you have baseball, where baseball is nothing but individual discrete activities happening over the course repeated of a game, repeated over the course of a season. And you can make mathematical formulas that break that down and determine how good a player is. Soccer is more, I don't know, it's Grateful Dead. It's one song flowing into the next song, and before you know it, you've been at the concert for 3 hours. And it's hard to, at what point during a Lucho Acosta run do you break down that, oh, he got into this position that then moved the defender here, that opened a passing lane that allowed him to thread a ball through to the wing that then resulted in a cross that scored a goal? Where do you break that down in those series of movements as to, yes, this is the thing that makes Lucho elite? There's no way to do it other than to say, man, he made a pretty run right there and just really unlocked the defense and then played a brilliant pass. There's not a lot to break down there other than, yeah, damn, that was pretty cool.
Yeah. The game is just moving too fast. Like you said, there's not enough individual moments. Like penalties, sure. Like penalty kicks and spot kicks, like that's fine. Some free kicks, but then every team approaches defending that differently and the wall differently. So it's all a little different. So I agree with you guys on that. I will say I don't mind some analytics, but a lot of it, and people just need to understand that a lot of it, almost all of it, is subjective. So again, in the Discord, we had a really long conversation about what counts as a long ball versus a clearance versus a long pass versus a launch. There's lots of different mixed definitions. If you think you have an understanding of XG, then start figuring out what post-shot expected goals are, and then go compare just two websites. Compare FOTMob and ESPN or FBref and CBS on whatever match you're watching. You will find radically different numbers because they're just using different formulas, different people's opinions about things. It's all incredibly subjective.
Like think about like how there's like a stat that's like successful dribble.
Yeah.
And as far as I can tell, it doesn't take into account like where your dribble is, how hard it is, or whatever. So like people will like throw out like, oh, like Powell had like a better successful dribble percentage than Oriano. And part of that is because like Oriano is like trying to do dribbles in like more advanced positions in like harder scenarios.
Right.
And like, it's like you're like, the team is making all kinds of decisions about like what situations it's trying to put players in.
Right.
And like, if like Lucho loses the ball a bunch of times, it might be fine because they're doing it in like in advanced positions and he's trying to do like extremely like dangerous, complicated passes that if they come off will create like goal scoring opportunities.
Yeah.
You know, and you want to put your best players in like advanced positions and doing the hardest stuff.
No, it's almost like talking about like former Xavier big man Matt Stainbrook was always open for three. Well, he was always open for three because he can't make them, and they just let him do that. Like Powell takes, however many successful dribbles. It's like, yeah, because they play back because no one really fears Powell dribbling at you. Whereas with Luka or Lucho, you have to close down that space immediately or you're going to get cooked. I have a higher level question then to sort of bring this into, even pull this back even further. Is this the reason why soccer didn't take off in the United States? That the sports that we, by and large, follow are sports that you can tell the story of with statistics, where you can have a box score. There are numbers that explain why one team did better than the other. But with soccer, it's not like that. The game doesn't lend itself to, you can read a newspaper article, look at the numbers, and figure out which team did better. There aren't the metrics for it, especially not even like 15, 20 years ago, to say nothing of 100 years ago. Like all the numbers you're talking about that are soccer statistics, by and large, most of these are inventions of the internet age. They weren't talking about XG back in the 50s and 60s.
Not thinking about like successful dribbles or key passes or whatever. No. He's just thinking about like I'm just gonna like make magic, which is what's fun to watch. Yes. What's fun to watch is like the magic happen.
I think it was super telling against DC United, because Troy Lesesne is very much from the Red Bull energy drink soccer version, where the system is the star and they want everybody drilled in the same regimented style. And it's, sure, it's pressing and counter pressing, but it's very drilled. It's the same thing every time. And there were just a couple of moments where like Lucho would Rabona the ball over to Bupenza, or would play a one-on-one with Oriano, where you're just like, yeah, you can't teach that. Like, you can't drill that. Like, these are just individual moments. They just burn past DC's guys. It's like, that's the fun part. That's what makes this sport fun. And honestly, it's why I really hate these overly regimented systems and things like, it's just, and it's Chief, not as much fun.
And Chief, to respond to what you said, I do think it's part of it, because I think about entertainment, and in the recent generations, there is like this attempt to like understand entertainment as like something that has like rules or numbers attached to it. And you hear people talking about like, oh, well, this movie ended the first act too late, and then the second act thing kind of dragged a little bit. And it's like, that's not how you like watch a movie, man.
Right.
Like, you just like enjoy it, or you don't.
Or even on a base level, people whining about how long the movies are, right? Yeah, exactly. It's just too long. Yeah, exactly.
And I think that like soccer, I know there's lots of numbers attached to soccer, and there's lots of people who love to like talk about the numbers with soccer, but like I do think soccer just like kind of inherently resists being Moneyball, and I think that it does. I think that it does like kind of, make it a little harder for American fans to get into it, because a lot of American fans that like get into sports, they just want to like dive into stats. And that's how you get into like articles from like 538 where they're like, Harry Kane is the most overrated person in world soccer. And it's like, nah, man, he's like real good.
He just scores goals.
He's like an incredibly good striker. And if you got numbers that say he's not, your numbers are fucked up.
Yeah, I want to talk to you more about how you got your numbers here. But that's American sports. That's the American sports experience. The American sports experience is points records, touchdown passes, home runs, batting average, and playground, recess debates with kids, Brady versus Manning, LeBron versus Michael, the Showtime Lakers versus the Chicago Bulls of the 90s.
But and there's numbers. You could do like Messi versus Neymar, and it's much more fun conversation when you don't have a bunch of like frankly contrived stats about it.
But this is your point, though, is that conversation is a STEAM conversation. It's about the art. Yeah. It's about the play style. It's the play style. It's this conversation inevitably boils down to, well, when he does this, it is incredible to watch. Like when you see him take this free kick, it is incredible. Or the vision he has on passing versus the goals he scores. You can't go and say, well, he hit in his best season, he hit 380. And he's part of the 500 home run club, and he won 6 gold gloves. Like you don't have those numbers behind it. You have to discuss it as art. And part of the problem with that is that, to a certain extent, you can engage in most American sports debates having never watched a minute of the game. You can have a Brady versus Manning conversation just by knowing the numbers between those two players and talking about, touchdowns, Super Bowls, MVPs, completion percentage, playoff wins, all these various things. You can't have a Ronaldo versus Messi or a Neymar versus Messi or a or a Pele versus anyone conversation unless you can talk about actually having seen them play. And so for that reason, I think that I don't wonder if that didn't hold the sport back in this country, because it divided you into camps. It was either you saw it or you didn't. Whereas with a lot of the other stuff, you could just sort of read the box score and still be conversational about how the local team was doing.
That's interesting. It might even have to do with the geography of the United States, because you do need to experience it as, you know, as an in-person event. It doesn't work very well over the radio, and it definitely doesn't work via newspaper, right?
Yeah,
so you need to have. Yeah,
I think the solution to it is just not like worrying so much about like whether you're right. Just do the classic thing of being like, oh, you didn't watch Neymar, right? Like
right.
It's just let it just be a debate out there.
I will say, Chief, I think if somebody is stats obsessed and ready to go about that, I think somebody who does watch the NFL can appreciate this aspect of it, which is there's a difference between being a good football player, or even specifically a good quarterback, and being a good fantasy football quarterback. Because a Gardner Minshew is like an awesome fantasy football quarterback, terrible actual NFL quarterback, and not somebody you want to build the franchise.
Kirk Cousins keeps getting money from teams that can't make this distinction. No,
right.
So if you want to put it in like football terms that like people might understand, is that why do offensive linemen never win the Heisman?
Right.
It's because it's a binary thing. You're either good at your job or bad at your job. And they have had to invent stats for offensive line play, like pancakes or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, it's what is it that makes a good offensive lineman? It's footwork, it's hand motions, it's all sorts of nonsense. It's
your
art.
Quarterback doesn't get sacked a bunch.
Right.
Right. Good at releasing the ball quick. Yeah.
But it's art. And like, same thing with wide receivers, good route running. It's art. There's a stat that results from that, receptions. But by and large, there's not a stat to measure how crisp someone is coming out of their break. And that's all of soccer. All of soccer is how crisp is the turn and shoot. What is the vision like? What is the footwork like when your first touch happens? And if you're not watching it, it's really hard to describe.
Yeah.
Which is why you need podcasters like us who who watch for you and tell you how to feel.
Because the best way to experience soccer is through an audio only format. That is what everybody says.
That starts out talking about reptilians and the size of their equipment.
Well, no, I do think the reason why soccer did not take off in the U.S. is a very large and multifaceted, fascinating question that stems from anti-Britishisms and just the popularity of baseball in particular getting there first. The first international
gambling as well. The NFL really took off because it was a very easy sport to gamble on. Soccer, not a great sport to gamble on.
I don't know. Like every shirt sponsor in England is a betting website, but yes.
Yeah, because they're making so much money on people trying to gamble.
Right.
I will say it's why fantasy soccer sucks, is that there is not a good way to translate it.
They should do fantasy soccer, but instead of like points, they should have people watch the matches and just give them an artistic grade.
So the Premier League's fantasy league started doing this, where it just awarded 3 points to the best player on a given team, 2 points to the second best, and 1 point for another. Just to this guy was really good today, so he got like bonus points or something. It's super dumb. I'd be much more interested in like a soccer player stock market, where you could buy stock in a player early. Like I'd be buying Dado stock right now, and then when he gets sold to Juventus, he can cash in on all of your cheap stock you bought.
This sounds suspiciously like a concept for a new type of cryptocurrency or some sort of a token system.
Dogecoin.
Whatever it is, I'm buying it. All right. No, first international cricket match was USA versus Canada. I just thought that was interesting.
All right.
Well, actually, this perfect segue.
There's absolutely no way this is a perfect segue into anything.
Not the cricket thing,
Oh,
but
okay.
the other piece of this, Miles Robinson called up to the U.S. men's national team, made all of the worst people mad that an MLS player got called up. And again, it's because these people are looking at stats, and that first stat they're looking at is what league is this player in, without actually watching the player and without actually seeing what happens day in and day out, and seeing that Miles Robinson is an absolute monster, shutdown center back who is taking on, in Major League Soccer, attacking players that could start for some of the biggest leagues in the world. But how MLS salary rules are designed, they end up in the United States on, frankly, inflated wages. And I think he does a fantastic job. And this is very well earned for Miles Robinson. So congratulations to Miles.
Yeah. We knew this, but that was part of the deal with signing him, was that you knew that when you sign a player like Miles Robinson, you are going to be losing him multiple times during the year because he gets called up and he's really, really good at what he does. I just think, I think I think we've mentioned this before. I am terrified that this back line continues to just dominate MLS. And at some point, someone gets the bright idea, what if we just call all three of these guys up?
Yeah, that is terrifying. I'm not bothered by the Miles call up. I know he's going to miss the NYCFC game on the 23rd.
Yep.
But I think we got enough, center backs to handle a game.
Yeah.
While missing our best one. I am concerned about missing both like Miles and Miazga.
Yeah. But aren't you a little bit curious now? Like what it looks like if we had Murphy and Keller out there, and just
I think it's a better than average MLS backline. Like I think if we assume like a healthy Nick, and Keller and Ian, I think that's an above average MLS backline.
Yeah, and I'm also I'm just curious, like how much of the reason why Keller looked so good on Sunday is the fact that, he's
I think a lot.
I think a lot, but now I want to know how much. I want to know how much. I'm curious.
We'll find out how much.
Yeah.
I mean, he Keller in particular was playing with Oriano, who, is not the most defensive-minded player in the world. So I think his job was a little bit harder in that regard, and still showed well. Yeah, I think we'd be fine.
But I did say when we signed him that I thought that he fit our back line well.
Yes.
And so like if you were to imagine like a Miazga central, Ian Murphy on the left, and the equivalent of Ian Murphy on the right, I expect that's going to be Keller on the right.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
And if I think that probably is fine.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for this coaching staff actually coaching these guys up. Like guys get better here. They've been improving. So, I'd expect them to get better throughout the year, which is kind of a scary thought given how good they've already looked. So, I don't mind that one bit. With the call ups, I mean, it's Greg Berhalter. I wouldn't expect him to pull anybody else up from FC Cincinnati just because he never really does. But then I don't want to speak too highly of him because we are playing him this week, but it is annoying once again that Vasquez is not getting called up. And granted, there's perfectly valid arguments for all of the guys getting called up in these things. It's just frustrating to think that this move didn't necessarily put him any closer. I wonder if Berhalter reached out to him at all during this process. But
so here's the real question. Does the lack of a call up mean Brandon Vasquez is fired up for tomorrow night's game? Or is he down for tomorrow because he made the move, he's been on a torrid streak and still didn't get the call up?
He
wasn't called up all last year.
Yeah.
And he never got fired up.
Yeah.
So
that's what I was thinking. Hopefully he's in his own head on this one.
Yeah.
Sadly, though, Portland did not take his strike partner. So I think he might actually start this home leg. So that's annoying. But yeah, I don't know. Just bummed for the guy. He's done nothing but, as we said, like with Harry Kane, all he does is score whenever he's presented the opportunities. Sure, he's not 5'4" and can pull back into the midfield like all the other guys, I guess, all the other strikers. But
do we need to be worried that Miles Robinson goes to Europe this summer?
No.
Worried? No, because if he's going, that means we're getting a big old payday, and that window's the easiest to replace him. And honestly, the depth behind him is so good that we could take a couple of weeks to find a replacement.
Yeah, I think the bigger worry is like we have Miles Robinson as a DP and like Lord Luca Oriano is like a DP.
Right. That's actually the biggest fear is we've accidentally boxed ourselves in to 5 DPs because Albright was really banking on the rules changing.
Yeah, the real worry is like none of these players move on.
Fit.
Right. Well, I mean, Barriel's on loan, right? So he can come back.
Yeah, that already happened to us. Like Barriel didn't move on. So we just have him like not playing in Brazil versus playing here, which,
Oriana's a DP.
It's the type of thing that somebody would do if they genuinely cared about their career and just didn't want to play here ever again.
I know, a terrible Brazilian team. That'll get me somewhere.
Yeah, where I don't play at all.
Yeah, awesome.
That's my move to Europe.
Despite the fact that I was building the reputation for being a world-class attacking left wing back, which is a very niche role.
Right, versus I could just make MLS All-Star team again.
Right. Only the best teams in the world deploy this position, and you look good doing it. Oh, well. Well, speaking of having too many DPs, the league is also allegedly seriously considering changing up the designated player to U22 ratio rule. So if folks are not familiar with this, God bless you. I am so envious of you. A team is allowed to have 3 designated players. However, if they fill all 3 of those designated player positions with guys all making over the max TAM limit, I think. You can't have anybody buy downable, and none of them are a young DP?
It makes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's no connection anymore. There'll be no connection anymore between your DPs and your U22s.
Yes.
But you could have 3 DPs,
yes,
no matter
this
what
is
you
the new
do.
rule. Yes.
And 3 U22s, no matter what you do.
Yes. So the current rule is you only get 1 U22 player if you're filling up all of your designated player spots fully to your maximum. But now, and if you had one lesser, not all of your DPs.
If you had one of your, if one of your DPs was either a TAM player or a young designated DP player, you could have 3 U22s.
Great. So this change, looking at FC Cincinnati specifically, would be a massive game changer for FCC because right now the team is only allowed 1 U22 player. Now this is a player that is, let's say, 22 years and younger. You're allowed an unlimited fee on their transfer fee. However, they can only make, like $300,000 a year or something like that. You cap on their salary, but you have an unlimited transfer fee, which honestly is usually the biggest hurdle to getting some of these really good young players into the league. We have one of them. That player's name is Marco Angulo. As far as I can tell, he is still in Ecuador dealing with a family issue. However, according to the team. We also know the team is shopping him for a loan, so things to think about. That is not official. Yeah,
I've reported that, yeah.
Okay, so this would give FC Cincinnati the opportunity, as it stands right now, to bring in 2 more U22 players. Now, in fairness, U22 players are absolutely a mixed bag, especially when you look across the league, but definitely when you look at FC Cincinnati, that sometimes you get an Alvaro Barreal, and sometimes you end up with a Marco Angulo, who's a fine squad player, and sometimes you end up with an Isaac Atanga, who was an absolute dud. But given what this program is, they're all expensive. So this is a very, high risk, high reward type of player, type of signing. I don't know how many roster spots we'd have available. I don't think we could go out and buy 2 players as it is right now, but you could also
get rid of one.
Yeah, you could buy out an underperforming striker and replace him with a younger, hopefully higher performing striker, or loan out a current U22 player and see what you could do. So yeah, I don't know. Thoughts on this, Chief?
I mean, we'd heard tell, it's been all around the club rumor mill that they were looking to bring in a U22 striker to complement Baird, Bopenza, and who they have out in there currently. Mm-hmm. And the thought was that the holdup would be getting Angulo placed somewhere. This would be huge. I mean, this would be, as it stands right now, the biggest thing that this allows, like you said, is that these are spots where you can pay a transfer fee. And right now they are in the position where it is very difficult for them to find room under the cap to pay a transfer fee for anyone, which limits the types of players you can get. You're looking at getting guys on a free and guys that they can slot in under the max TAM level. This would be an opportunity to, you buy 2 and hope that one of the 2 works out. So this would be big for FC Cincinnati. It would be big, especially because the teams that would be losers would be the teams that already are set up with the 3 U22 spots in the young designated player or the sub max TAM designated player. Yep. So we're actually in a position to take advantage of this. And that's an opportunity. If this is like one of those rule change today, you can start signing tomorrow. This is an opportunity to bring in reinforcements at the summer window where we thought this team might have a difficult time bringing in a lot of reinforcements at the summer window.
Yeah. Grayson, this is being billed as a part of maybe some larger changes coming down from MLS, given that they didn't end up changing rules this past offseason. If this ends up being the only rule change, say, for the next 12 months, is this enough for you? Is this the Messi effect in MLS?
It's not enough for me. I mean, like we've like heard a lot about they're bringing in this like U22 striker that's going to be like a Vasquez profile or whatever. But the fact is that like there have been very few like strikers brought in on the U22 initiative that have been very good. Like it's been an extremely variable position. And like Brenner was brought in not on the U22 initiative, he was brought in on the young designated player slot. Yep. Which means his salary was like over, the max salary spot. I think his salary was like $1.2 million or something.
Yeah.
I like Chris Albright has signed one U22 player. It was Marco Angulo. And it sounds like he's trying to already like move him on.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, like it sounds great that we might have this opportunity to bring in like 3 U22 players, but they're young players. They're not guaranteed immediate contributors.
Yeah.
And so we'll find out if Chris Albright has the ability to sign a U22 player who can contribute right away. I mean, like, I hope he does, and I think we all hope he does, but we'll see.
It's so funny, too, because MLS has this idea that, you just go down to South America, you buy all the young stars, they get really good, and then you sell them to Europe and you make money. And if it was that easy, everybody would be doing it in Europe. And while there are a couple of clubs that sort of specialize in this, the biggest ones in Portugal tend to have a knack for this. Some of the biggest clubs in the Netherlands have a knack for doing this. They also get more than 3 tries. You can go out and hire 8 or 9 Brazilian youngsters, and 2 of them pan out. And one of them's an Uruguayan striker named Luis Suarez. And you're like, yeah, the program works, but you don't see all of the teammates with Luis Suarez that did not pan out as well. And MLS is only letting these teams get a couple of cracks at it before you hit the maximum. And especially now under the current rules, where your most ambitious clubs, the ones that are paying 3 designated players, are the ones that only get 1 shot at it. It's totally backwards. You're putting all of the risk on the cheap owners, which of course they're just not going to do it, or they don't even have the resources and scouting to do it correctly. So it's unfortunate. I really hope this isn't just the only rule change, though. Like, if this is the big, oh, Messi's coming, so we're changing the league now, this can't be it. Like,
it's not good enough.
No,
There's
not
no
even
chance.
close. So let me ask you this for both of you. So right now, the MLS salary cap is like $5 million. That's the hard cap. But then obviously there's all sorts of GAM and TAM and other things. So like the salary budget ends up being somewhere closer to like $10 million. Would you give up a designated player spot to move the hard cap to like $20 million and get rid of GAM and TAM?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Easy. I mean, that's where, like, we're in the middle of CONCACAF Champions Cup, and this debate has come up online. It's why are the Mexican teams so dominant in Champions Cup? Well, I mean, there's a number of reasons. It's the late part of their season versus the start of the MLS season. But the answer is that the salaries are more evenly distributed in Mexico. You don't have a guy making, on a $10 million transfer fee, making $3 million a year, being forced to play next to a guy making $80,000 a year. Or if you want to improve part of your team, you just go buy the player to do it. You don't have to think about, how do we fit this person in under our salary cap, or what roster machinations do we have to use in order to make this happen? If winning and competing in Leagues Cup and competing in CONCACAF Champions Cup is important to the league, and it seems like it is because they're going all in on Leagues Cup, and eventually, they're going to have to deal with the fact that when and if Liga MX decides they start caring about the Leagues Cup, there's little reason to believe the results won't mirror what CONCACAF Champions League are. You're going to have to start diversifying roster spend to a certain level. So, yeah, I don't know that the league benefits from a 4th DP spot right now as much as it does from just raising the total amount of salary spend you can have. And by that same logic, I would absolutely trade away that 3rd designated player spot to just get better players on slots 3 through 11.
Yeah.
I agree. Let's do the part 2.
Okay. Well, speaking of CONCACAF Champions League, FC Cincinnati is playing in it, or Champions Cup, whichever, I respect both choices here, but it will always be CONCACAF Champions League to me. Let's talk about that in part 2. And before we get into the next part of the episode, I want to tell you about our other sponsor, Cincy Shirts. And if you're going to sit here and tell me that you've never heard of Cincy Shirts, I'm going to sit here and tell you I don't believe you, because these guys have been with FC Cincinnati from the very beginning. And we here at the Post, we are just huge fans of their work. They have tons of really cool FC Cincinnati gear, shirts, hoodies, hats, all sorts of cool stuff. Go over to their website, check out what they are selling. You want to go to cincyshirts.com. That is Cincy with a Y, or you can just click the link in the description of this episode. And when you go there, use the promo code ThePostCincy, all one word, all caps, and they will knock 10% off your next order. They have MLS and MLSPA licensed FCC gear available online or in their 3 retail locations in Hyde Park, Fort Mitchell, or Loveland. And I can attest to this. I've used this before. If they don't have your size on the shelf, they can probably print you one on the spot in the store. So again, huge thank you to Cincy Shirts for sponsoring the podcast, and a huge thank you to you, dear listener, for using that promo code. All right, part 2, and now we finally get to talk a little soccer, talk a little actual action. FC Cincinnati taking on Monterrey in Monterrey on Thursday. Again, when this episode is live, and probably when you're listening to it, they are down in the leg 1-0. Monterrey has that crucial away goal, which is brutal. The only way FC Cincinnati is winning this one is by beating Monterrey by more than 1 goal or winning in a shootout. I guess, Chief, vibes going into this one. How are we feeling going into this match?
I mean, I don't expect them to. Do any of you expect them to win this game?
No,
I don't either. I don't expect them to win this game. So, like, are vibes high? No, but are they down?
Grayson's vibes are high.
So this was the stat that was put out.
Yeah, it
was MLS now 5-58-14 in competitive games at Mexican opposition. Ugh. MLS teams 13-49 in 2-leg series versus Mexican opposition. MLS teams are 5-31 when the second leg of those games are in Mexico. That's a staggering number. 5-58-14 in competitive games at Mexican opposition. 5 wins. There are 5 total wins that MLS has against Mexican competition in Mexico.
We got them right where we want them.
Yeah, no, we just spent the entire first segment talking about how, like, stats in soccer don't matter.
Don't care.
Wins, losses are fairly.
So, like, are vibes high? Sure, but, like, not for any reason that I expect to win. I'm just, what I really want to see in this game is I want to see FC Cincinnati avoid what happened to Orlando City, where they just got absolutely walked by Tigres. So I'm expecting a loss in this game, but it would be really nice if they, a 2-1 would be nice, or even, dare we dream a 1-1 draw where they still don't advance, but, like, they score a goal, they keep it respectable in terms of goals allowed. I don't want them to get blown out. Not for the least of which is that just, like, I like the idea of the confidence in the back line staying high.
Yeah. Pachuca beat Philadelphia 6-0, and their beat writers talking about how that's actually good for Philadelphia.
That's not happening. And also that was fucking cope. Also, Philadelphia's beat writer sucks.
Like, he's an awful take machine is what he is right now.
Every reaction he has, every instinct he has, it's all, like, bad. And he's like too dramatic. I'm not trying to pile on. But.
Yeah, no, it's too much. Look, losing this game will be sad. Like, if our favorite team does not advance in the CONCACAF Champions League, it is a disappointment. It is a trophy that they could have won at the beginning of the season that they no longer can win. And it was a hope that even I have in this moment that they can, in fact, do this. I understand it is an uphill battle, literally and figuratively. Monterrey, fairly high elevation. This is a team that FC Cincinnati played better than in Cincinnati just a week ago. Like, I'm not forgetting that. I remember because I was there. I witnessed it happen. This team is continuing to improve, and we'll talk about it. They won't have Wobodo for this one, but they will have Yedlin and Oriano. So I think we can do this. Like, I genuinely think we can do this. I don't expect them to, but I think they can. I don't know. Is anybody carrying the optimism from that 1-0 loss into this one still?
Yeah, definitely carrying the optimism.
Okay. I wasn't sure if the other matches sort of brought it back to reality that playing back in Mexico.
It's just, I'm not worried about it. My only question is, do you think Noonan rotates this game, or do you think he goes for it?
I think he goes for it, except for like Wobodo's not available, so we're going to see like Malik Pinto starting.
Do we see Pinto start?
I think we see Pinto starting, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
See, for me, I would strongly consider with Wobodo out, Pinto, get Dotto a run in there.
I would start Pinto.
No, I'd say
starting though.
No, Pinto and Dotto. Give Lucho the start of the game off, and if you're still close, if you've kept the game close into like the second half, maybe you give Lucho a second half run out there.
Or what if you do the classic Lucho as the striker with Bupenza? And you put Dotto back in the midfield.
I actually like that quite a bit. It feels like kind of galaxy brain, but I like it. I like it a lot. Like Lucho and Bupenza on up top.
Yeah.
Dotto and Pinto in the midfield next to Buka.
Yeah.
And you have Baird on the bench. You have Kubo on the bench. You have Santos on the bench.
Powell on the bench. You had a lot of options.
That feels aggressive.
They have to be. You gain nothing for being defensive in this game. And it's the cliche, but scoring early would radically change how Monterrey has to approach this game. Because Monterrey seeing out a 0-0 draw is a win for them. But all of a sudden, if they're losing in the first 10 minutes, their game plan radically shifts.
Is scoring a goal imperative for the FC in this game? Like, is it? Yeah.
Literally, if they do not score, they will not advance. So they need one.
Right, but I'm just talking about existentially, that this team has not scored a goal in a minute. Do we need a goal in this game? Just to feel good about ourselves.
I mean,
yes.
I still think it might be hard.
All right, so would you rather, as an FC fan, 0-0 draw?
Okay.
They look dangerous. They have scoring opportunities and don't score, or lose 4-2.
That's what I was thinking.
Actually score 2 goals. The 2 goals go in the back of the net.
I think I might take 4-2.
I take 4-2. Yeah.
I think on a similar note does FC Cincinnati need a win out of one of these 2 games? Like, are you considering this weekend?
They need a win in New England. New England has been terrible this year.
They're reeling.
And FC's got to go in there and win.
Yeah.
I don't care what the score is. I don't care if it's like 1-0. I don't care if it's like 5-4. Right. They have to go into New England and win.
So New England, we're calling a must win.
Yeah.
Is it a must win or can't lose game?
I'm calling it a must win.
A draw would be awful, especially a scoreless draw. Oh, I don't know. I don't know if the fan base can handle that.
It's hard to call any game a must win this early.
No, it's a must win.
But I'm going to say, like, if they want to win the Shield or win like an early cup, it's a must win to find your form.
I don't think they need to win versus New England, but like they need to score some goals in one of these 2 games. The problem is that, like, if I say they need to score some goals, the defense is so good that if you score 2 goals, I don't really see a scenario where you lose. So,
yeah. Grayson, very quickly, predictions for these games.
I'm going to go 1-1 in Monterrey and 3-0 in New England.
Boom, boom. New England's going to crush us. Got it.
No, for us.
Oh, okay. Beautiful. Chief, do you want to try to put a prediction on this?
I'm going to say Monterrey 1-0. They win. And that we beat New England 2-0. I think that there will be that week where I think we won't score, and it will be agonizing watching the discourse around this team.
Wait, are you predicting a 2-0 loss?
No. That Monterrey game, they will not score. And the discourse until Sunday where they put 2 in the back of the net will be just insufferable.
I don't know if I can deal with another round of people on Twitter saying Bupenza's an awful striker and should not be starting for this team. It's like, guys, he scored last weekend. What are you talking about?
I'm actually kind of curious how long they can go scoring goals on the road and not scoring goals at home before there's like an outright revolt in the fan base.
I mean, we might already be there on Reddit. So,
but they were very nice to us in the review thread for which podcast should I listen to. So Reddit's back on the it's back in the 11 for me.
Yeah. The day that I said Redditors weren't people, there was a lot of nice things being said about the podcast. So that was nice. Let's see if I had to put numbers on this one. I will, you know what? I'm going to predict it. FC Cincinnati wins in Monterrey. They win the match 2-1, and they go to extra time. They go to kicks, and they win in penalty kicks. Roman Celentano, absolute hero on the day. I'll even say Brandon Vasquez misses a penalty. And it's a real bittersweet moment for the whole fan base.
Yeah, it would be really funny if he really just skied one and start the conspiracy theories that he missed on purpose to send his old team back through because he felt bad about leaving.
Yeah, he didn't get his call up, so he's like, "Fuck this, I'm out of here." This team didn't work out at all.
They have to beat New England. There's like so many reasons. Like New England is terrible.
Yeah,
and also it's Caleb Porter. Like you've got to beat Caleb Porter. Like that's
you have to beat Caleb Porter.
The honor of the honor of the club, the soul of the club is at stake when you're playing a Caleb Porter coach team. You can't let that happen.
Yeah, and with that, I will say they beat them 2-0 in New England. New England is playing Alajuela from Costa Rica tomorrow as well, so we can keep an eye out on them. That team is not very good. New England beat them 4-0, but New England has been struggling in the league. I'll be honest with you, I don't particularly care about the New England match. My focus is way more on Champions League, and then where this weekend ends up, so be it. I don't think it'll be.
Now, see, I have already moved on. I have already moved on from CONCACAF Champions Cup. Like I have chalked it up as a loss. I have already decided we're getting dumped out of this tournament. And I don't want to give what's his face Tenenwald from Philly his credit because, like I said, just a furnace for awful hot takes.
Yes,
but I also don't disagree that it will probably be to this team's benefit to get out of this competition now.
I mean, this is the way I look at it. I don't particularly care about the shield for this team, right? Like, if they win it, great. If they don't, so be it.
Agreed. We've been there, done that last year.
Yeah. So, and we know that a team can be bad in the regular season and still make the playoffs. So I don't particularly care about the early season of MLS so long as it is accompanied by success in Champions League. So like, I don't mind going for it here and then resting against New England even, so long as it means that we are continuing to advance. And if we make it to a semifinal and fail there, I think that's still a success. It's more successful than Philly was, and it gives our team knockout experience, which is what we actually want when Leagues Cup comes around, but then more specifically when MLS Cup comes around.
I just don't see a lot of daylight between where you finish in a tournament if you don't win it. Like it's binary for me. It's either, it's to quote great latter-day philosopher Richard Bobby, if you ain't first, you're last. And I don't think we're going to win this. Like, look, would it be awesome if they got past Monterrey? Yeah, that was, I don't know. That's cool. Like you beat one of the, the pinnacles of Mexican soccer, the top team in the federation. But like, there's still all these other great teams lurking out there. You're still looking at like Club America lurking out there. You're still looking at, possibly a date with Miami or Columbus. Like, I'm not ready for that. The odds of all that happening and going FC Cincinnati's way just seems so, infinitesimally small that let's focus on let's take some time and focus on ourselves. We need to focus on ourselves a little bit.
Oh, I don't have a good bracket in front of me. I'll say I have Thought Mob's bracket, and I suddenly just do not trust it whatsoever. I think we would eventually end up with the winner of Tigres Columbus should we get past Miami following Monterrey. So, yeah, not a ideal run of teams.
Right?
Either one. I'm getting knocked out to Columbus or by Columbus and Champions League for them to make a final.
Yeah, no, I just like
be worse.
Whatever avoids that happening. And if that requires us to lose now, I would rather lose now than lose to Columbus later. I am not mentally there yet from what happened last year.
But let me ask you this.
It would not make us even. No, it would not.
Come on. It's pretty damn close.
You have to win Champions League if that's the case. If you knock Columbus out on your way to winning Champions League, yeah, okay. You have knocked them out and done something that they have not done, where you unequivocally have some form of bragging rights over them. I just don't see this team getting through, Monterrey, Miami, Columbus, or Tigres and Club America. That would be an all-time epic run through the best that North American soccer has to offer.
This is when that starts. This is it right here. No. This is the start.
They can't score against DC United. Come on.
I don't have a good excuse for that.
No. Be cool if it happened, though. I'm just not bothered. I am not bothered. Yeah. Will you be bothered if they lose this game? I will be unbothered.
I'll only be bothered because it kicks off at 10:15 p.m. And so I'll be disappointed somewhere in the middle of the night.
If they are down, how many goals do they have to be down by before you're not a bad fan for going to bed early?
I think once they're down 3, you can safely tuck yourself in.
I'm just gonna go with 2. Does that make me? Because you're really down 3 on aggregate at that point.
That's a good point. Yeah. Because then you'd need 4 to win outright.
Right. Extra time would just be the worst in this game. It's already kicking off at 10. You got to go into added time. That's brutal for the workday on Friday.
This is the killer too about doing the 2 predictions at once, because if it goes to extra time for whatever reason, then you really want to just start slamming the draws or losses to New England, because that'll be tough to come back from.
Yeah, that is a late night in the old Mexico, as they say. Yeah.
And it's like I said, they play at altitude. They're a very good team. That'll take a lot out of them.
It's a great way to grow the game, kicking games off at 10 p.m. on a Thursday.
You'd say it's for local kickoff, but as Carter reported, they've only sold 35,000 tickets out of their 55, 60,000 person stadium. So
still pretty impressive, actually.
And actually, yes and no. If they are this big fabled fan base, and we have, I'd say, the best team in MLS last year coming in a Champions League quarterfinal, or I guess it's a semifinal.
It goes back to
whatever.
I made this point online earlier. This is just nobody cares about this. They want to make this a thing. It is not a thing. It's just the CONCACAF Champions Cup is just not a thing. No matter how hard they try. They
don't do a good enough job promoting it. That is 100% the case. And they need to be attaching a lot more prize money to get these teams to actually care. Because,
what they need to do is they need one team or 2 teams in some other league that isn't Liga MX and MLS to be something. The comparison to this that I was trying to explain to somebody the other day was that imagine UEFA Champions League if it was just the Premier League, the Bundesliga, and then 10 Slavic leagues that have no teams you've ever heard of.
Right.
The allure of Champions League is that, you've got La Liga, Serie A, Bundesliga, the Premier League, and then some of these big clubs in Ligue 1 and the Eredivisie, and but in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, all the best teams that anyone gives a shit about are in 2 leagues. What is there any allure to playing a team from Costa Rica or a team from Guatemala or one of the island states? I mean, I'm not even convinced Cavalier is a real team. I don't think that I think that was a create a player thing on FIFA that somehow took human form.
I mean, Alajuese and Herediano and oh my God, there's one other. There's like 3 good Costa Rican teams.
I'm not certain you didn't just make those up. Like you could have said like Playa Rojo, and I would have been like, I'm sure, okay.
Those are good. Now I will say, way back in the day, Liga MX was allowed to play in the Copa Libertadores. And if MLS could get itself into that with Mexico, now we're talking. That's South America Champions League, baby. And now you've got, Boca Juniors, Sao Paulo, Flamengo, River Plate. Like, those are some good, fun teams in there.
We should note for the listeners that Grayson absolutely Irish goodbye-ed us because he had something else to do in the middle of the recording. So if you haven't heard Grayson in a minute, that's the reason why.
In my head, we were going to get to the next segment very soon, and I was going to say it then, but then I realized we just kept talking. Yeah, he just disappeared on us. Yeah, Grayson had to leave, unfortunately.
That's what happens when there's a no news week, is that we talk about all sorts of nonsense in segment 1, Grayson dips in segment 2, and this is just the podcast you're getting.
This is where it stands. Well, with that, Chief, I mean, do you want to answer a couple of Patreon questions?
Let's go do it.
Is it fair to answer them without Grayson? Maybe people are dying for Grayson's answer. We'll answer it. Whatever.
Let's do it.
This is what you get. All right, part 3, we're going to answer a couple of Patreon questions. Part 3, we are back. And again, sans Grayson. All right. So if you're missing him, I apologize. We do have some very, very good questions coming to us from the Patreon. Again, if you like what you heard, and God bless you if you did, you can financially support us, make terrible financial decisions. And if you do, you too can ask us a question. Only one a month. That's it. We will not answer anything else.
For the price of 2/3 of a cheese coney per month, you too can become a lovely patron of the Post Cincy.
I think on that comment alone, the cheese coney went up another 50 cents.
Yeah,
so
I'd rather have 2/3 of the cheese coney, honestly.
Yeah, that's a good point. Go in and negotiate a 2/3 coney with them. This one comes to us from KP, and this is going to be a fun one for you and I to answer. Who has the best March route? Do you enjoy the March? And how could the March be next level? I'll note that those are 3 questions, but I'm going to let it slide this time.
Yeah, objection, compound question.
Who has the best March route? I think objectively the best March route is Queen City Mafia, because they are across the street and don't participate in the march. So
that's all that extra time at the bar, which is really what we're looking for here.
They just wander on over to the stadium, really contributing to the atmosphere there, folks. Chief, is this where we point out that during the pandemic, you and I literally walked around OTR and marched out and mapped out the eventual march route?
I guess we can point that out. Yeah, like during the heart of 2020 when everything was awful, Kevin and I met up when we were both, more active in the SG scene, we'll say. And we figured out exactly where it was that we would need to go. Fun story as well. Kevin was, I believe we'll give you your flowers on this one. You were the one that made the first contact with the individuals that own and operate Northern Row. So at the northernmost tip of the march, you were the person that made that contact. You were the person that made that connection. You and I shared many drinks there with the
Too
ownership
many drinks.
before they were officially permitted to open with the city. So that was a lot of fun. I think that, all right, here, I'll offer a different question to you.
Okay.
Nippert March or OTR March?
So the OTR March would be infinitely better with just a couple of tweaks. The first tweak would be it has to go at Finley Market, I don't like that it goes down one more half block and then down the alleyway. I think going through Finley Market would be the dream. I understand Finley Market probably doesn't like this. And I understand the police and the fire department have lots of say over all of this, which is why it's never quite the same. But then you have the straight shot. I think that would be the best. I think that little tweak of like getting Finley Market more involved would be clutch. But I liked the Nipper March a lot. The police seemed way more chill. Like way more willing to block off all of the streets. Let us take the street. Like that part does suck that you can't take the street in OTR.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. What would make the march better in OTR, number one, would be just declaring OTR a public consumption zone so that you can continue to drink on the march. I mean, perish the thought any of us ever, snuck one in during the walk or purchased a 6-pack and split that on the walk.
Who can really say if any of these things?
I'm just saying if that had happened with people that are here. The other thing that I think what needs to happen is I think that when you go down that street as you're about to enter Washington Park, Pleasant Street, there are always people that are lined up in their homes, clapping, cheering. Yeah. I think we should, at some point, give all of these people road flares and smoke bombs and tell them to pop as soon as they go walking by and sort of make a canopy that everybody walks through. The idea of just emerging from the haze as all these people are, serenading, clapping, and they're actually participating in the pyrotechnics. I think that would be very, very keen. I think that would be very, very cool.
Awesome. I also think the getting into Washington Park should always go through the stage. And I understand they set up bands and stuff.
Get out of the way.
You have to be set up in such a way that they can move the drums, or the drums are always off to the side, whatever it is. The fact that everybody has to go down and then over is so awkward. Also, while I'm throwing criticisms out there, I think the march moves too quickly. I think it's too much of a giddy up. I think that it needs to be a little slowing down there.
Yeah, I mean, if you allow people to have the roadie, I think that solves a lot of the problem, which is it's not fun to be pre-gaming and then have that moment of sobriety before you hit the stadium. Good question, though. I am all in favor of more people joining the march. I think the march is cool. I think the visual of seeing all of the supporters arrive, it rules. It's very, very cool. From the perch at the pitch, where the aforementioned Queen City Mafia posts up, watching the march come by. Yeah, is awesome, especially since you can sit there and drink and watch it happen, which is very cool.
I will say, though, objectively, the best experience is with the Pride at Northern Row. I will go ahead and put my bias out there. I think it's the most fun route. It's where it really truly starts, and it's a good atmosphere. And it's a good bar, and I'm glad they worked with the Pride. So it's really good.
There are no wrong answers as long as you join the march, though. Join the march at least once per year. As a fan, it's almost like making a pilgrimage to Mecca. Mm-hmm. Once per year as a season ticket holder, you should resolve to come down early and be part of the march. I don't care if you don't do it the rest of the time. Every year, once per year, you must pay tribute to the roots of this club and march to the stadium with the supporters, I think.
Absolutely. I'm going to have this one because I do think we've touched on all this, but I want to make sure Tom gets his moment. Tom Myers asks, is Boop going to be able to travel to the away leg for the Monterrey match? And is there any news on a U22 initiative striker? I'm letting him ask the two questions. Wow. Back to back, folks. Get your acts together. Because we can say that Bupenza is able to travel for the away leg. That was reported earlier this week, as well as even earlier this year by both Carter and Pat. So that is good. As far as news on a U22 striker, Chief, you got anything inside scoops for us?
Nope.
No.
I wish. Stay tuned for the summer. Stay tuned for the summer, I think.
Summer's a good one to look out. I mean, really, if you want any news on the U22 striker, keep an eye on Marco Angulo. Like, if he is back with the team and starts integrating with the team and is starting or regularly playing, that tells you that striker is many ways off. So long as Angulo is not with the team, I think that the chances increase that we see something this window here. This question from Brock Bermel asks, what is your FC nightmare scenarios for this season?
Oh my God, for this season?
I just say this year, but I'm going to limit it to this season. I mean, this year, I guess, would be Albright and Noonan find new jobs elsewhere this offseason, but
yeah. Nightmare scenario. I mean, you don't want to see any of the major stars of this team get injured. I don't even want to put it out into the ether by even suggesting that.
Mm-hmm.
So beyond that, which is really, really obvious, I guess the nightmare scenario would be, I mean, losing to Columbus 2 more times.
Yeah, getting swept by Columbus.
It's not a rivalry, but it would still, that would make it even worse.
Chief stands alone in that opinion, by the way.
No, my existential fear is it's always the same every year when it comes to what is my nightmare scenario for FC Cincinnati. That is the wrong person winning the U.S. Soccer Federation election and instituting promotion and relegation. Because I've been living in this town too long to believe that the FC Cincinnati would not be relegated at some point in my lifetime.
I mean, if we use the law of averages, it should be a while before we're wooden spoon contenders.
When was the last time the law of averages ever applied to this damn city when it comes to sports?
You know, you make enough finals, you win one of them, or semifinals, even in our case. Oh, boy.
What's your nightmare scenario?
What is my nightmare scenario? The nightmare scenario is Boupendza is another Santos. Because if that's the case, then the questions become, is Albright able to sign top-end attacking talent? And all of a sudden, a lot of things start getting called back into question. Where you thought Albright never misses, now you think, is Albright able to sign attacking talent on this team? Like, he can sign a defender like nobody else.
Right.
But even 22, 23, a lot of that attacking talent was brought into the team by Nijkamp. Sure, granted, all of them at this point have signed new contracts, but if you can't do it, and you start to question the whole project.
Yeah,
I don't think that's the case. The underlying numbers for Boupendza, and to me, the eye test tells me he's going to be just fine. But I think that, to me, would be the nightmare. You want one more?
Let's do one more.
I like this one.
We have to give people a little bit extra because Grayson's not here, and he's clearly the star of this show.
That's true. And this kind of goes along with what we were talking about actually before we hit the record button. This is from Porter Henson. He asks, when is the gear dropping? Give the people some of that tasty Queen City War Pigs and the post-Cincy swag. Chief, anything on the Queen City War Pigs front?
Yeah, we're a little dormant right now.
Yeah.
The problem is, if you want to go behind the scenes a little bit on how all this works out.
Yes, please.
I am profoundly uncreative and untalented when it comes to any sort of artistic persuasions.
Yep.
Whatever it was that's in your gene pool or in like the talent fairy that blesses you when you're born, I can't sing a lick. Anyone that's ever heard me try to do karaoke knows that. I can't draw a lick. I can't paint a lick. I'm profoundly bad at all of these things. I don't really, I'm not a creative person by any stretch of the imagination. I have a wild imagination, but just like translating that into actual, finished product. So I am very much at the whim. I don't know if this is true for you as well, but I am very much at the whim of creative people deciding they want to take pity on me. So
100%.
So if you have enjoyed Queen City War Pigs merchandise in the past, the person you need to thank is one Andrew Springsteen, who is
Yes.
TIFO designer extraordinaire, all around creative genius. I don't throw that lightly around. The man is absolutely a creative genius in the supporters space with the stuff that he has done. Designed many of your favorite scarves. You might not even know that fact. So he was the originator of the Queen City More Pigs merchandising brand. Like with the postcast stuff, it's we do audio, but like the logo for this podcast is also Andrew Springsteen.
All Springsteen. All the visual element, the everything. Colors, the fonts, any visual element you've seen.
Yeah, yes. Would we like to do merch for the post? I'd absolutely love to do merch, but I do not have the talent to design a t-shirt that anyone would want to buy at all.
Same. And I don't want to just put text on a t-shirt and sell it. So
no, it feels very low effort.
Yeah. One of the 12 seems like it writes itself for a t-shirt. I don't know a good way to do that.
And the other thing, I don't know if you feel this way too, but like we're getting meta. Now we're discussing like the actual podcast business on the podcast.
Yeah, I like this.
This is what happens when Grayson's not around.
He would have shut this down a long time ago.
Yeah, no. I don't know if you feel this way too, but it's like, okay, so who do we know that is in the sphere of the postcast that has this sort of talent? I don't want them wasting their time doing stuff for the postcast. It's like,
yes,
if like someone's going to design something, I want them to do the Opefest shirt for this coming year.
Yes.
And if you're wondering, yes, Opefest will return this year. Stay tuned for details. But we are committed to making Opefest a reality and making Opefest having Opefest return. But yeah, I don't want them. I want them designing player banners for, TQL. I don't want them designing some stupid shirt for a podcast no one listens to.
Yeah, 100%. There's so much more effort that can be spent, or so much better things that the effort can be spent on in the FC Cincinnati supporter space than on merchandise that is ultimately just a weird advertisement for the podcast. And I mean, 12 listeners is plenty. The 14, with a couple of bandwagoners there, that's fine too. But
if we got to what would the number be that we need to get to in order to think that like maybe we'll do merch?
What's probably like 25 is probably like a minimum t-shirt run for an online vendor or something.
That. That's your minimum order at like Custom Ink or anything like that. Or even at Cincy Shirts, use promo code ThePostCincy at checkout for 10% off your order.
In that way, every single item that Cincy Shirt sells is in a small way.
It's kind of a post piece of merch. Yeah, I was thinking the number has to be like 30 listeners.
Yeah. 30 listeners. So then you order 25 shirts and I just get one for free. That's how it works.
Yeah. And then you get the extra 5 and I can wear one not out. I don't want anyone to know I'm associated with this. No.
It becomes another lawn mowing shirt. Which, by the way, have you mowed your lawn yet?
I have not. No, I procrastinated on that until the last possible minute. My lawnmower is profoundly screwed up. I inherited it for free when a coworker bought a new mower when I first moved into my house. And in order to start it, I have to turn the mower completely upside down, flood the engine with gasoline, and then and then you pull the string a bunch of times.
I have an electric mower because I'm that guy.
Really?
And
so you're going full electric these days.
I am. I'm trying to keep Duke in business here.
There you go.
Everything I own is rechargeable these days.
Battery operated life, babe.
I really should have invested actual money into like lithium.
Right. Or like solar panels or something like that.
Yeah, that maybe at some point my life will get there.
What other behind the scenes business of the podcast can we talk about publicly? Thank you all for listening.
That's helpful.
We shared this in the Discord. We have a separate Discord for, just the group of us to talk about what we're doing on the show. Yes, we are keeping secrets from all of you people.
100%. 100%. They're great secrets.
But if you're listening this far, you're a sicko, and you'll be pleased to know that we did, in fact, set a download record on Monday, which broke our previous record from the previous Monday. So things are all 12 of you are really chipping in. So we're getting the full. I have a feeling this one is not going to set download records.
But... No. But you know what? If we just set download records every other episode, I'll survive.
Fine. That's fine. I don't know how people are finding it though, because I see the interaction numbers on the tweets we send out, and they are not great.
No, they're fine. I mean, I guess you'd rather see like click-throughs. I don't even know if Twitter lets you see something like that.
No, they can the app is barely running at this point.
It's great.
All right, you want to get one final prediction before we get out of here?
Ooh, please. Okay.
All right, one final prediction. Allegedly, because I'm a nerd like this, Elon Musk is launching another one of his giant Mars rockets to test tomorrow.
Okay.
Does it blow up? Yes or no?
Yes. I don't think it makes it all the way through its testing.
I think this one we got it. I think we got this one.
So what's the plan? Is it to go up into space and land back down on a platform?
This is just to go orbital, and then it's going to crash into the Indian Ocean, but it's got to get to orbital. The win scenario is get to orbit.
Okay. And this is an all stainless steel.
Yeah, the giant one down in Texas that they're building in the middle of, in Galveston.
Gotcha. I mean, I'm rooting for it. Like,
Same.
In general, I want more space.
It's a win-win, too. It's either the coolest explosion you ever want to see, or we put something the size of a skyscraper into orbit. I think either one of those are cool things. I'm
into it. Bring back Project Orion, okay? Nuclear weapons as rocket fuel. We can do this.
The sad part is I know what you're talking about, and I'm like, I'm completely in favor of this. It's like, what if we just strapped a bunch of nuclear bombs at the back of the rocket and just blew them up until we got into space? What could possibly go wrong with this?
It's better than just keeping them around, you know?
Yeah. What's the point of nukes if you don't blow them up?
I'm always saying that. Chief, get us out of here.
Go fuck yourself, San Diego.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Cincy Postcast. It is a production of The Post Cincy. You can check us out at thepostcincy.com or just click a link in the description to check out some of our written work. It also has links to our social media accounts across all sorts of different platforms, including YouTube, where we are trying to do more and more video content. Please, dare I say it, like and subscribe and leave a comment. But no, that would be really, really helpful. I also want to give a thank you to Jim Trace and the Makers. They're a local Cincinnati band who provided all of the music for this episode. We love having them on board. You can check them out. Again, link in the description of this episode to find out where they might be playing shows next or where you can listen to more of their music. Also want to give a massive, massive thank you to the awesome and very attractive patrons over on Patreon. It is a voluntary subscription that people take out with no real promise of anything extra that keep this show afloat. And we are so, so thankful to those of you that have decided to take that commitment. If you do like the show, or at least just want to engage with other people who have listened to the show and want to talk about FC Cincinnati, MLS, soccer, or really anything else, you can go on over to Discord. Again, link in the description. Lots of links in the description where you can find a link to the Discord. That's where we are keeping the conversation going 24/7. It feels like it's a really fun group of people in there just talking about FC Cincinnati. And like I said, just about everything else. And finally, I'll say it. If you liked this episode, and given the fact that you've made it all the way to the end, I have to assume you either like it or for some reason cannot reach the stop button. Please share this episode with a friend or family member or someone who likes FC Cincinnati. The best way for us to grow is from a personal recommendation from somebody who likes it. And if that's you, please tell other people. And if you don't have any friends, feel free to give us a review on whatever your podcast platform of choice is. We'll take anything we can get. But again, a huge, huge thank you to everybody for listening to this show. I am blown away that anybody listens to this. So again, I well and truly mean this. Thank you so much for listening.